This is Sister Carol with the Ursuline Sisters of Louisville. At our chapter in 2019, we committed to collaborate in mission as we respond to the cry of earth and the cry of humanity. As St. John says of love, it is an old commandment and a new commandment. Responding to the cry of the earth and the cry of humanity is grounded in our charism, a lifelong commitment for each of us, yet a renewed commitment as we discern our role in what Pope Francis calls a generation of restoration, and the United Nations names the decade of the ecosystem. In the encyclical Laudato Si, Pope Francis clarifies, we are faced not with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather with one complex crisis which is both social and environmental. Strategies for a solution demand an integrated approach to combating poverty, restoring dignity to the excluded, and at the same time protecting nature. He further emphasizes, a true ecological approach always becomes a social approach. It must integrate questions of justice in debates on the environment, so as to hear the cry of earth and the cry of the poor. This is what is meant by integral ecology, corresponding to the United Nations' 17 Goals for Sustainable Development. Laudato Si is an important text for the global climate movement, strengthening the common witness of faith communities. Upon the 5th anniversary of the encyclical, the Holy Father launched a new ecclesial initiative to promote an integrated approach to the crises of our world. The Church's Committee for Justice, Peace, and the Integrity of Creation, JPIC, is collaborating with the Global Catholic Climate Movement, GCCM, and with the U.S. Catholic Climate Covenant to support Catholic groups as they develop their Laudato Si action plans. The rapid intensification of global warming has given new urgency to our response to the climate crisis. If we fail to break the pace of warming by the year 2030 by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, the damage may be irreversible and accelerating. The Holy Father therefore proposes that Catholics in every sector of the Church publicly express their commitment to move toward integral ecology and develop a 7-year strategic plan for the transition. This intentionality will itself awaken others to hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, and respond with creative compassion as well. The collective strategy is to gather at the grassroots the critical mass necessary to animate the movement, then leverage that influence to bring about systemic change. The global witness and collaboration of this Laudato Si vanguard will catalyze the movement towards a just and ecologically sustainable way of life, even as we respond to the needs of our world. Poignantly, the past year and a half has brought home the tragic reality of devastating natural disasters, exacerbated by human hubris, and the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 and other crises on the poor, especially Black, Indigenous, and people of color, the so-called BIPOC communities. The injustice and violence of racism, the desperation of migrants, and the vulnerability of the poor confront us on our doorstep. In fidelity to our charism, we do engage in works of justice, mercy, and peace. The Ursuline Call, in its chapters on poverty, community, and prayer, expresses our commitment to integral ecology. Decades of ministry in Appalachia and Peru have made us aware of the cascading impact of environmental degradation. All the more, then, do powerful patterns of global devastation, exploitation, and violence challenge us to personal and collective examination of conscience, and invite us to ecological conversion and an integral vision of our common home, in solidarity with the whole Earth community. The Vatican Laudato Si initiative identifies 7 sectors in the Church: individuals and families, educational institutions, healthcare facilities, parishes and dioceses, religious congregations, groups and organizations, and the economy. Each institution must respond according to its own charism, mission, and communal context, just as each person must consider one's way of life within one's own situation and giftedness. The diversity of this groundswell corresponds to the beauty of creation's own splendid array, united in the gift of life. The Vatican has established the Laudato Si Action Platform website to promote the movement. Religious congregations have established a website, Sowing Hope for the Planet, to aid their discernment, planning, and action in addressing the demands of justice, peace, and the integrity of creation. International webinars share the examples and experience of congregations already undertaking ecological conversion and offer practical guidance to support those overwhelmed by the science, vocabulary, and immensity of the task. Ursuline Sister Teresa Lidakoska noted that charism implies mission. It is a gift to be shared with others. Pope Francis' integral approach is reflected in the 7 Laudato Si goals: response to the cry of earth, response to the cry of the poor, ecological economics, simple lifestyle, ecological education, ecological spirituality, and community engagement with participatory action. Surprisingly, in an address to Laudato Si communities, the Holy Father focused on contemplation and compassion. During Laudato Si week, Pax Christi made a key presentation on nonviolence, and Sowing Hope for the Planet, on behalf of religious communities, inaugurated its prayer network on the Global Catholic Climate Movement website. Walking around the chapel court at the Mother House, the legend on the Ursuline coat of arms stained glass window caught my attention. It's from the prophet Daniel. Those who instruct the many in justice will shine like the stars. Erudiens ad justitiam means both instructing and leading to justice. It implies both from and to. St. Angela Merici says, if according to times and circumstances the need arises to do something new, to make a change, do it prudently and with consultation. This year's Laudato Si celebration took its theme from the introduction to the encyclical. For we know that things can change. Times and circumstances bespeak the urgency of change. Our own chapter Grace invites us to consider our present practices and policies, and our potential to collaborate, maximizing our capacity to be in mission, to have an impact in responding to the cry of earth and the cry of humanity. What is it time to change? As we continue to engage on a broad range of peace and justice issues, including ecological concerns, let us prayerfully consider the prophetic dimension of the Laudato Si invitation, leading to justice by our example. The apostles exhort us, as we live out our gospel mission, above all to be mindful of the poor, to live temperately, justly, and reverently in this world. With other religious congregations and sectors of the Church, let us creatively undertake our own ecological conversion. The ecumenical season of creation begins in September and culminates with the Feast of St. Francis on October 4th. During that time, the Vatican's Laudato Si action platform will welcome those communities prepared to undertake a 7-year journey towards integral ecology. In subsequent years, new cohorts can also commit to the pilgrimage of sustainability. In keeping with our congregational resolution, we have already begun to be attentive to the cry of earth and humanity, to examine our own practices, to seek out partners and explore opportunities for collaboration, and to discern our own strategic approach, backyard and beyond. Laudato Sister Elaine Prevelet observes that religio, religion, means reconnecting. Our Ursuline Directory reminds us that teaching Christian living exemplifies that working for justice is essential to the gospel. Justice is restorative. It restores peace, dignity, hope, beauty, freedom, and community. Let us be the generation of restoration our vocation and our world call us to be.